Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're setting our sights on a peak that is, well, it's so much more than just a mountain. We're talking about Lookout Mountain in Colorado.
We are. It's this amazing geographical monument, a huge spot for recreation, and also the final resting place of one of the 19th century's biggest celebrities, William F. Buffalo Bill Cody.
And the sources we've got for this are fascinating.
Oh, they're fantastic. We're looking at everything from, detailed topographical surveys to these historical accounts of some really ambitious and sometimes failed infrastructure projects.
And we even have the logistics for how they manage, what, 500,000 visitors a year to a single gravesite.
It's an incredible number.
So our mission today is to really get to the bottom of why this one peak, 7,377 feet high, is this nexus where nature, myth, and engineering all just collide.
Right. And it all seems to boil down to this idea of access. Who got to it first, who tried and failed to build a railroad to it, and who, like Buffalo Bill, chose it as, well, the ultimate stage for eternity.
Let's start with the physical reality of the peak itself. I mean, when you think of the Rockies, you picture these huge, snowy peaks. But Lookout Mountain it's a bit different, isn't it?
It is. It's a foothill, but it's a really prominent one. It basically defines that dramatic eastern edge of the Front Range. That's the key.
Okay, so it's not a 14er, but its position is what matters.
Its position is everything. It sits at 7,377 feet. That's about 2,249 meters. And that height gives it total dominance over the plains to the east. It's in Jefferson County, just, 1.7 miles from downtown Golden.
And the view, I mean, you can see downtown Denver 12 miles away, clear as day. That's not just a nice view, that's strategic.
Exactly. And that's the origin of the mountain's entire story.
Yeah.
Our sources show that the Ute tribe were the first known people to really use the mountain. For them, it was a critical lookout point.
So not for recreation.
No, not at all. This was practical. This is about survival, observing the movement of game or, other groups of people.
So how does a military or survival post become this global tourist destination? That's a huge leap.
It is, and it required infrastructure. And this is where that classic late 19th century American ambition just slams right into the reality of the Rocky Mountains.
You're talking about the railroad.
I am. It's a fascinating story of failure, really. In 1890, the Denver Resort Railway and Telegraph Company decided they were going to conquer this mountain.
A narrow gauge railroad in 1890. Up that kind of grade, that sounds incredibly difficult.
It was. And well, their ambition kind of overshot their ability. They built the track, but the line was never actually completed or opened for passengers. It was just too much.
So it just sat there.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It was listed as an operating railroad until 1898, but it was basically useless. A huge monument to a failed project. The steep grades, the Colorado winters. It was just too much to overcome back then.
Wow. So if the railroad failed, how did people finally get up there in large numbers?
That success came about 2 decades later, in 1913. With the Lariat Loop Road. And unlike the railroad, which tried to go straight up, this road had to use this winding switchback design to manage the ascent from Golden.
And the Lariat Loop is now a scenic byway itself, right? A piece of history.
It is a historical artifact of early automotive engineering. But it's not just for cars anymore. The mountain is still a place for some really rugged recreation.
You mean the Chimney Gulch Trail?
Exactly. It's known for being a really difficult, narrow, single track. You see serious mountain bikers and hikers on it. It gains elevation so fast, and it actually crosses the Lariat Loop Road twice.
So you have the leisurely drive and then this incredibly intense physical challenge side by side.
And then you have the people who just want to use gravity. It's a super popular spot for paragliders. They launch right off the same heights the Ute used for observation.
A hub for every way to interact with the mountain. Okay, let's pivot from the terrain itself to the celebrity who claimed it as his final stage.
William F. Buffalo Bill Cody.
Cool.
I mean, to really understand Lookout Mountain, you have to get the scale of his fame.
He wasn't just some local hero.
Not at all. His Wild West show made him one of the very first global media superstars. He was touring Europe, meeting kings and queens.
And that's what draws people. But you mentioned his burial spot was contested. The official story is that he just wanted it for the beautiful views.
Well, yes. The records say he wanted the breathtaking views, and they are breathtaking. But choosing that specific spot in 1917, it was a deeply strategic move.
How so?
By the end of his life, Cody was nearly bankrupt. Placing his grave on the highest, most visible point overlooking Denver basically cemented his legacy in this majestic, untouchable location. It was his final brilliant performance.
He was performing his own death, just like he performed the Wild West. And what about the contested part? Wyoming wanted him, right?
Oh, they absolutely did. Cody had spent a lot of time in Wyoming. He helped found the town of Cody. There was a huge rivalry between Colorado and Wyoming over who had the right to his legacy.
And Colorado won.
Colorado won. But that fight just underlines how valuable Buffalo Bill was, even in death. And Lookout Mountain was the prize.
And that prize pays off today in visitor numbers. The data you found is really interesting here.
It is. So you have over 80,000 people a year who tour the actual Buffalo Bill Museum. They're digging into the history, the life, the Wild West show.
Okay, 80,000, that's a lot.
But then, if you look at just the gravesite and the museum's observation deck, 500,000 people visit those points every year.
500,000, wow. So that really suggests that for most people, it's about the view, the myth, the spectacle, more than the detailed history inside the museum.
It connects right back to the Ute, doesn't it? The mountain itself makes you look outward. But the park is more than just Cody's grave.
Right, there are other historical sites. Tell me about the Bocher Mansion.
The Bocher Mansion is this incredible piece of architecture. It was originally called Lorraine Lodge, built in 1917 by a big Denver entrepreneur, Charles Bocher. It was his summer home, a hunting retreat.
So once the Lariat Loop made it accessible, it became a playground for the rich.
For Colorado's elite, definitely. But the land eventually came back to the public. In 1968, Bocher's granddaughter donated it, along with 110 acres. Now it's used for special events.
So you have the celebrity memorial, the wealthy family legacy, and then there's the nature center, which brings it all back to the land itself.
Yes, the Lookout Mountain Nature Center and Preserve. It has these interactive exhibits that really ground you back in the geology and the ecosystem of the foothills. It's a great reminder that before it was anything else, it was a living environment.
Okay, so we've covered the geography, the history, the celebrity. Let's get practical. For anyone listening who's thinking about a trip, what are the essential logistics for the Buffalo Bill Museum and Grave?
Right, this is all about how you manage a high-altitude attraction. First, the address you'll need is 987.5 Lookout Mountain Road in Golden.
And I'm guessing, since it relies on that winding road, weather and season play a huge role in operations.
A massive role. You really have to pay attention to the seasonal shifts.
Mm.
In the summer, let's say May through October, the museum is open 7 days a week. They're maximizing access for the tourist season.
But then winter comes.
And things change. From November through May, they cut back to a 5-day operation. They close on Mondays. They open an hour later. It reflects the lower demand, but also just the sheer difficulty of keeping that road clear and safe.
Makes sense. They also close for the big holidays, I assume?
Yes. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Day, the usual.
Now, for anyone planning a trip on a budget, there's a really key piece of information about admission.
This is some valuable intelligence, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The museum actually offers free admission on the first Wednesday of the month, but only from November through April.
Ah, so it's a strategy to drive visits during those colder, quieter months.
Exactly. It's a smart way to manage traffic flow and keep people coming up the mountain year-round.
And what about larger groups or accessibility?
Good question. Any group of 10 or more has to make a reservation in advance. And for accessibility, this is really important. Things like a sign language interpreter are available, but you have to request them.
You have to plan ahead.
You have to plan way ahead. You have to email the city of Denver directly to arrange it. So it's possible, but it requires that proactive planning, just like navigating the Lariat Loop in a snowstorm.
So when we pull this all together, Lookout Mountain isn't just a burial site. It feels more like a testament to this impulse to, capture and mythologize the American West.
I think that's it. You have the raw, natural power of the mountain, that 7,377-foot view that Buffalo Bill wanted for his legacy.
And you have the story of the infrastructure, the spectacular failure of that railroad in 1890, and then the eventual success of the Lariat Loop.
Right. And through all of it, the mountain has always been a place for observation. From the Ute tribe's practical needs to the millions of tourists standing on what is essentially Cody's observation deck today.
This whole deep dive really has been about access and how the value of a view changes over time. It started as a literal lookout for the Ute tribe, a tool for survival.
And that purpose is so different from the later history of tourism, celebrity, and this drive to create a myth of the West. It leaves us with a really interesting question for you to think about.
Go on.
How does the mountain's infrastructure, from that failed railroad to the modern system of seasonal hours, reflect America's changing relationship with nature? Does making a place like this totally accessible diminish its original power, Or does it just transform that power into a different kind of cultural monument?
A fascinating question. From a strategic lookout to an eternal stage. Until the next deep dive, keep exploring.